Good morning and welcome back to the Homeschool Library. This here is Brad as always, and as always, glad to have you aboard. So it is, wow, I don't know if you can hear that or not. My German Shepherd just apparently found a critter outside the schoolhouse here. She's barking up a storm. So hopefully that won't get in our way. Hey, it is January. And a lot of things are going on. Certainly, Haggard January. I'm playing. I think a fairly big part in. Going to be seeing. You've probably seen several videos for that already. Hopefully, several more. January is an awesome month. I can't speak highly enough about Haggard January. Quickly becoming, I think, my favorite reading event so far. But as a lot of you probably know, I'm fairly new to the BookTube community, so I'm a little late to the game on participating in some of these reading events. A lot about them I'm kind of learning about on the fly here as we go throughout. And one that a friend of mine and subscriber informed me of last month already was Historathon. Hadn't heard anything about it. Didn't know that was a thing. I'm a history guy. Sounds intriguing. Didn't honestly at the time think that I would probably participate in that one. But as I've learned more about it, I think, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for Historathon 2026 because it sounds like a lot of fun and certainly plays into what we're doing here in the homeschool library with the educational focus that we try to do here. So a lot of people, they're putting out videos of their Historathon pile of possibilities, and they got a big stack of books of just all kinds of things for the 4 different prompts. I hope that I remember them properly. I'm not going to do that. I kind of went through the shelves and picked out some things that I'm interested in, ones that I haven't read yet, some of which have been in my library for years, if not decades already. And I'm not going to marry myself to these so much. I'm probably these specific I'm going to read. I may wind up reading others as well. In fact, I probably will, because this isn't just 1 month reading event like most of them are. This covers the whole, it's quarterly. So if I remember the prompts correctly, and I'm going to try to put them in the description of the video down below too, if you are somehow unfamiliar with Historathon, there's a lot of booktubers out there that are doing some awesome videos on this topic already. But first prompt is prehistory through 500 AD. That's quarter 1. So like January through April. Quarter 2 is 500 through, I want to say 1500. So it kind of covers the early through the late Middle Ages. Then 1500 through 1820, I think. And then quarter 4, the end of the year, is 1820 to the present. So I picked out, in this case, not just books for myself, but I want to get my kids involved in this one, which I think will be a lot of fun. I don't know that we're going to do much with them on camera for probably obvious reasons, but I pulled out some books from the library as well that I'm going to be reading with them to celebrate Historathon 2026. So let me pull those out and show you what we're going to be doing. For the kids, it's actually all one series that we have a few of. I want to get more, a lot more actually, because this is a very expansive series. There's a lot in these, but these are just ones that I pulled that kind of fit into each one of those quarters. They are the Who HQ books. You might be familiar with those. Maybe here's a bigger logo on the back. Who HQ. There's a lot of, it's not who, sometimes what. In this case, who was King Tut? I think this would be a great one for the youngsters. There's a lot of good illustrations in these, pretty easy reads, but also a lot of information. Um, I think this will be very good. My son has already kind of got an interest in ancient Egypt. Uh, about 3 years ago, I think he was 5. We were in a Barnes and Noble, and he could pick out any book that he wanted, and he pulled out a book about embalming, like how the pharaonic mummies were made. And like, oh, okay, that's yeah, 5-year-old. You can learn about all the gory details of making mummies. I thought that was awesome, and he read it. Right next to his bed. He kept that there every day for probably 3 months. So that was really neat. I think this will be a good one to read with them. And for myself, a grown-up history book. I pulled out this one. This is by Richard Billows, Marathon: How One Battle Changed Western Civilization. I know, I think probably quite a bit about the Battle of Marathon and how it followed from, the great story of Thermopylae, and just the Persians and the Greeks and that era. That's always been an era of interest to me. This is one that I pulled off. Actually, this was my dad's book. So I rated I rated my dad's shelf for this one, and I know he read it. He really enjoyed it. He suggested that I read it many years ago, and I never got to it. So now I think it's going to be a great time to pull that one out. For quarter 2, I've pulled out a couple here that I think are going to be interesting. One for the kids, we've got Who HQ, Who Was Galileo? That'll be neat. I've always been fascinated with Galileo and the discoveries that he made and the time that he was making them in. There was a time in my younger years, while I was still going to college, I actually got the opportunity to visit the History of Science archive in Norman, Oklahoma, which is very awesome. Probably the coolest library I have ever seen in my life. Among many things that they had Thomas Jefferson's manuscript, his handwriting, notes on the history of Virginia. But better than that, they have a first edition copy of Galileo's, I'm not going to try to pronounce it in Italian, but The Revolutions of the Heavens. This is the book that he got excommunicated for. Some of the diagrams in that first edition book, at least one of them, had been printed upside down. And there were some other errors in the first edition as well. And the copy that they have has Galileo's handwritten corrections in the margins. And I got, because of I was awarded an internship there at the History of Science archive. I did get to actually fulfill that through a lot of reasons. But I was the first one that had ever been granted an internship there. I was supposed to be digitizing some of the files. So I got to handle a book with Galileo's handwriting in it. I've done a lot of really cool, awesome things in my life, I think. That one is in the top, maybe 1. 2, if you count, getting to marry my wife. That was pretty awesome. It's up there. Galileo's handwriting, if you're a history geek, if you're a science geek, if you're just whatever kind of geek, you got to admit, that's pretty cool. Well, then they also had a second edition copy of that book with those corrections having been made. So if you ever get a chance to visit Norman, Oklahoma, the university down there, make yourself an appointment, try to visit the History of Science Archive as a researcher, whatever. You will not regret it, I promise you. So that is for the kids for quarter number 2. For myself, quarter number 2 is this one here. The Civilization of the Middle Ages by Norman F. Cantor. I bought this book when I was, 13. Probably 13. Yeah. This edition came out in 1993. So I would have been 13. I bought this book and it has been sitting on my shelf since 1993. I've never read it. I've flipped through it a time or two, but I never actually sat down to read the whole thing. So now's the time to fix that problem. Quarter 3, 1500 to 1820, I think. We've got the Lewis and Clark expedition in that Who HQ series. I think that one will be pretty neat, especially since historically, geographically, right here where I live is kind of very significant to the Lewis and Clark expedition, the Louisiana Purchase, and all of that. The 100th meridian, which runs just a few hundred yards west of me here, right on the other side of the pasture, and the Arkansas River, which is a few miles north, that was the dividing line between what was France and what was Spain. So right here where I live is, I live in what was Spain. On the other side of that river is, no, I'm sorry, backward. I live in part of what was the Louisiana Purchase. All I have to do is walk a couple hundred yards that way, and I'm in Spain or Mexico or Texas, depending on the year that we're talking about. So that in itself is really cool. And I think reading this book with the kids will help kind of cement why that is so significant. For myself, another book that I've had for a few years and I've never actually sat and read, although I've studied its significance so much from honestly high school on that I feel like I know it already, but I want to actually read the thing, is Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. My French isn't all that great, so if I didn't pronounce his name properly, please forgive me. De Tocqueville's Democracy in America is one of the founding documents to our founding documents. Really, a French visitor to the early United States and everything that he wrote about his experiences here in this brand new country that was at that time unlike anything that had ever been seen in any government on the face of the earth. This is put out by the University of Chicago Press, this volume. I was pretty excited when I bought this, and I bought it at a used bookstore several years ago. You'd never know. I don't think it's ever been read. This is actually on my 50 by 50 list that I've been kind of putting together. I'm going to do a video on that one of these days in this coming year. I've seen a lot of 40 books you want to read by the time you're 40. One of my favorite channels out there, M Reads, it was her video that inspired me to do this. So Em, if you see this video, I loved that one. Thank you for the inspiration. So I've been curating that, make sure that 50 books by the time I turn 50, which is in 5 years, I want to make it worth it. So this is one that's actually on that list. So I'll be knocking that out maybe a little bit early in the process for Historathon 2026. And for the last quarter, 1820 to the present, we've got Who Are the Wright Brothers. I think this is going to be especially fun for my son. He loves planes, everything to do with that. And this is going to be right up his alley. I'm very excited to read all of these. I really enjoyed the series as a whole. And for me, after those, that's some pretty deep reading, especially you saw the size of this, Democracy in America. That's a tome. That's a big book. So I decided to give myself a little bit of fun. And this is another book that I picked up at a university bookstore probably 20 years ago. And I know that I actually researched it for a paper that I was writing in school, but I didn't actually sit and just read the whole thing. So I want to do that. This is going to be a lot of fun, I know, by William Savage Jr., Commies, Cowboys, and Jungle Queens. The Comic Books in America, 1945 to 1954. 1954 was a very pivotal year in the comic book publishing industry. That is the year that the Frederick Wortham authored Seduction of the Innocent came out. That gave rise to the Comics Code Authority, kind of in-house censorship. It killed a lot of comic publishers, and the few that survived are the ones that we still have largely today. Very influential book, very misguided book, but influential nonetheless. So this is about the decade kind of leading up to that, the World War II era, up through the 50s, and the comic book publishing industry at that time. I'm really excited about this one. That's going to be fun. So that is my tentative plan for Historathon 2026. Some of the selections that you guys are picking out there for your own Historathon reads, really impressive. I've seen all the pile of possibilities. I'm really excited to be seeing what some of you actually pick for your actual reads. Looking forward to those reviews. Stay tuned throughout the rest of this year for reviews on these. I'll let you know what I think, let you know what the kids think, and I'm going to leave you with that. Like, subscribe, all the things, thumbs up button really helps the channel. And you know what? Just encourages me on a personal level. And I know that you all want to do that. So thank you. We'll see you next time.